I believe that past performance is an indicator of future success, and so I'm going to ask you a Part A and a Part B question that deals with your tenure at the high school. I'll ask both parts and then come back to Part A to make sure that you're comfortable with both parts.
Okay.
Part A, what administrative procedures or decisions have you made that have allowed you to make Hazlet High School a more effectively run building? That's Part A. Part B, in your role as the educational leader of Hazlet High School, what educational initiatives have you started or supported that you're particularly proud of that enhances the learning of students?
Okay. Well, I will tell you first and foremost, Mike, that when I walk into Hazlet High School on a daily basis, my first priority is safety for our students. And I will tell you that there isn't a day that goes by without me thinking about that issue. It's first and foremost on my mind from the day that or the moment I walk in there in the morning till the time that I leave in the evening. And that includes extracurricular activities as well. I believe that I've created a sound, educational, safe environment for our students to get a solid education. I believe that I've created a sound environment for students to be involved with educational activities beyond the regular school day. I also believe that I'm supportive of our teaching staff, support staff, that allows them to do their job and deliver the instruction that's necessary for us to be successful, and I believe we are successful. Educationally, as I look at the programs that we've developed over the years, I'm most proud of the teaching staff that we've hired in the last 4 or 5 years. We've been able to hire probably 55% of my staff is new in the last 5 years. And as I said to you in the last interview, when we hire teachers, we rely on them to be professionals and behave in a professional manner. But I also believe that we allow them to do their jobs. And my job as a building level principal at this point has been to support those teachers in those educational endeavors. Examples of programs that are happening right now, I can point to the special education program where we are currently looking at mentorship programs. Also expanding new curricular types of programs that have not been there in the past. For instance, in the last 2 years, comparative religion has been a class that was introduced as a result of a building goal of diversity. And frankly, when comparative religion was first introduced to me by the classroom teacher, and I'll give you her name, is Jan Shoemaker, I had some reservations about it because all of a sudden now you're talking about bringing religion into the school. And so we did a lot of background study into that before we embarked on that. It has become, in my opinion, one of the most popular classes at the high school. I won't take direct responsibility for it, but I will take responsibility for supporting her and making sure that, that she's successful. And the same thing will hold true with a mentorship program, presently looking at stage technology as a possibility down the road. We've got some wrinkles to iron out before we get involved with that program. But as I think off the top of my head, those are the programs that come to mind.
Next. Deb.
Our elementary schools, Wilshire, Raya, Murphy, and soon at an earlier level, the MSU preschool, are a major part of the reputation that Hazlet's enjoying at this point in time. And the board definitely sees that as a big part of our program here in Hazlet. And you don't really have experience in the elementary education arena. And what I was wondering is if you were hired as superintendent, what would you do to acquaint yourself with those programs, and how would you improve your support, and what are your thoughts on that level of the school district?
Well, if I was a elementary principal and I was looking at that particular arena right now, I guess I would have concerns about a secondary person coming in, based on the fact that they've not had experience. My focus for the last 6 years has been at the high school. And most of you know that's a pretty big job. It's something I put a lot of time into. I'm very proud of the work that I've done there. But to answer your question, there is no question. I would have to spend a great deal of time working with the elementary people to get up to speed on that. I've had 2 children that, and my daughter just left the elementary grade. She's headed for the 6th grade. So I've had 2 children come through the system. Went through Wilkshire and spent their elementary days 2 through 5 at Murphy. So I am somewhat acquainted with how the education works there, but do I have a thorough background? No. Mine has been, Bev, at secondary. My focus has been there. That's where I spend most of my time. But it's a demanding job, and for me to branch off and go to the elementary school and spend a great deal of time during the day just doesn't happen. So I would commit to making sure that that happened, because I do need to get up to speed with that. And frankly, I'm sure that's a concern.
Kind of an add-on, if I may, to that, we have a relationship with MSU that Bob and Sharon and a lot of our teachers have been building for years, and with interns and now the lab preschool. How would you go about maintaining this relationship and acquainting yourself with it more so than you are now, if you were superintendent?
Well, I believe that I would have to dig into it knee-deep and become very acquainted with MSU's program and the entire collaborative program that we're going to be working with Wilkshire. Again, I know holistically what this program is, but to get into the nitty-gritty of the actual students on site and being able to observe students and how that whole realm works, I've not been directly involved with that, Bev, but I'm very confident that I can get up to speed on that very, very quickly. The relationship with Michigan State is very, very important. I see the Michigan State University and the Wilkshire collaborative effort very, very important for this district in the coming years, and it's a necessary one for us to maintain not only the enrollment, but some of the programs that we've been able to offer students over the years here.
Thank you.
Scott.
Hi, Mike. I just want to make a side comment here on your earlier answer regarding your comparative religion with Jan Shoemaker. I, as most of the board people know, that have gone through a student teaching thing and have observed her, and that is an excellent class. That's from my little bitty teacher experience, and I'm not, believe me, it is little. She is excellent, and if any board member has a chance to go see a class at the high school, I would strongly recommend stepping into that class at any time, because I found it fascinating, and she was an excellent teacher. So anyway, that aside, Mike, emotion or lack of emotion is sometimes viewed by the public and by an administration and by a staff as a negative. And in a chief administrator, if you were to be named the chief administrator, could you please comment on your emotional style of management as to how your emotions are sometimes shown or not shown? There's some snickers in the audience.
I want to go back to what you said about Jan Shoemaker. The danger in all this is mentioning one teacher and not mentioning others.
I understand, but I just observed her, so I'm
But you need to know there's quality teachers at the high school and at all levels, so.
But as you know, student teaching, I don't have to go see all of them, I only need to see a few, and Jan was nice enough to let me in, and that was a good experience.
Okay, my emotion, I will tell you that, and I hope students will tell you, that I am pretty even-keeled during the course of the day. There are times when I can get worked up about things, but I cannot afford, as a high school principal or as a building administrator, in the public eye, to get to this point right here and start either yelling at students or having confrontations with parents. It's my responsibility, I believe, to listen to people, but also to respond to them in an appropriate manner. For me to get down too far or get up too high, not that I don't have those kinds of emotions, but I'm not going to wear it out on my sleeve. And I've never been that type of person. And I think part of it has to do with being raised in a family with 7 children. But I also believe it has something to do with my background in athletics and as a coach as well, and a classroom teacher. I think that you have a responsibility to students to maintain a decorum and be a positive role model. And being up here too high is sometimes good when you're trying to get people motivated, but also being down here too low also can be a negative. So I guess if I had a description of myself, it would be pretty even-keeled most of the time, and that's what you're going to see from me.
Charlie.
Welcome, Mike.
Hi,
A few
Charlie.
years ago, about this time of the year, we had a number of parents that began to talk about stories they were hearing about drugs and alcohol in the high school and outside of the high school, you know, both places. As superintendent, how would you address some of the social issues that the kids are encountering, the drugs and the alcohol?
Yeah. Well, I want to frame that because that really was a result, if I can go back, to talk about that issue. That was a result of us as a staff at Hazard High School identifying what we would call casual conversation between students in classes, in the hallways, and the conversation was really turning to a point where students were feeling comfortable about talking about weekend types of activities that were very, very inappropriate. And as a result of that, at a staff meeting, through our character committee, which was part of our North Central, we determined that we were going to take a stand on this. And as a result of that, I asked teachers not to allow that kind of behavior to occur in the classrooms, and if it continued, that they needed to address the issue. The other piece of it was that we determined that we wanted to talk to students about this issue. My fear at that time was to have 60 teachers addressing an issue that a number of them didn't feel comfortable addressing in front of kids. And so I took it upon myself to get into the government classes and English classes to talk directly to kids about this issue. After that happened, we had at least 2 to 3 student forums on this issue. And I felt that after addressing it with staff and going to the student body, because parents were starting to get involved with this, it was important that we take a stand and start talking about a forum. And Bob supported me on this. We put together 3 forums that addressed the high school, the middle school, and the elementary. And we really wanted to get the message out to parents that it was important that they start to take a look at some of the behaviors of their own children. As a school, we're often criticized for not taking a tougher stand beyond the school day, beyond the 4 walls of Hazard High School in the parking lot. And there's just so much we can do. You know, I have 2 children, and it's something that I feel a necessity, my wife and I both do, a necessity to address with them right now. And something that we need to constantly reinforce with them, that it's not okay to participate in those kinds of things. Unfortunately, sometimes there are some people that don't believe that it's kind of a rite of passage for students to get involved with that kind of stuff, but our message over the last 3 years to our students has been clearly that this is not acceptable. You know, I'm very proud of the fact that we just came off of a very successful prom that we held downtown East Lansing. And I will tell you, when we had when it was revealed to me that they wanted to go to Club 131 at the former Dooley's Harper's, I was nearly sent into a heart attack. But as a result of working with those people at Harper's, they gave up their liquor license. They actually searched purses that evening, went through coats. They had an on-site police liaison person that worked strictly in the downtown East Lansing area, in and out of the bars, to supervise. And, you know, I'm very proud of the fact that I think that we, as a staff at Hazlet High School, do a very good job of monitoring those kinds of activities. You know, I think sometimes there's a perception when we have an activity, a dance or something, that we just open the doors and they come in. There's a great deal of preparation that goes into that, including getting enough chaperones, including covering exits, including covering the parking lots, and including having police officers present so that we don't have those kinds of issues. But I will tell you, this issue for me has been a little bit like trying to get your arms around water at times, because it just has a tendency to get rumors fly, and there's problems with that, because it creates problems, I think, with parents. You know, unfortunately, we suffered a couple tragedies this past year, and that was not a very pleasant experience for any of us at Hazlet High School. Probably the toughest 6 months that I've gone through. But it's something that I believe that we have been very, very diligent about following up with. And I believe it's a safe place for kids to come to school and get an education without that kind of the drug and alcohol interference.
Okay, so now you're the superintendent. Anything change? What's your position?
Well, I think there's some initiatives that we can look at. You know, the idea that you have more and more supervision, you know, as we become larger at Hazlet High School, as that campus becomes more expansive, it becomes more and more difficult for a couple, three administrators to cover. And I think that there needs to be some kind of thought toward security. And frankly, we've thought about that and looked at providing some kind of security, more security, that would cover the grounds and allow us, I guess, a little bit more peace of mind. I don't know if that answers your question, Charlie.
Well, you're focusing on the high school, but there's now you're superintendent, and we have a lot of other schools.
I understand, and you know, that's, and when I sit here and I talk about that, you know, sometimes I forget that. I mean, I'm looking at that piece of it because that's the way that I've worked for the last 6 years.
Thank you.
Tobias.
Mike, you have an extensive sports background, and you've mentioned part of your managing style is to hire good people and allow them to go about doing their job. Now, as a role of superintendent, how would that management style transition into your new role? And you've yourself mentioned there are areas that you need to improve your skills on.
Well, most of my experience has been working with teachers. Unquestionably, I'd change my management style to principals now. And, you know, I believe that the administration in this district is very, very sound. There's not a weak link. Every one of those people are very, very busy people. And I don't believe that I'm a micromanager by any stretch of the imagination. That's never been my style. I believe that you hire those good people, and those people are already in place in this district to do their job. And, you know, certainly as an administrator, I can be a listening ear. I can be a coach when things are not going exactly the way that they feel they need to be, and help them perhaps problem solve areas that they're experiencing difficulty in. But I see my role as a person that's going to be coaching principals now, and as a superintendent. And it's a very, very difficult job today. Principals, in my opinion, have the most difficult job in terms of some of the issues that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. It is a demanding job, and it is a very public job. And the superintendent needs to be there to support those folks.
Thank you.
Okay,
Go ahead, Bill.
okay, I will. Mike, can you take a moment to elaborate how you and with your staff have worked to implement the district's curriculum planning process as it's over the last couple of years?
When I took the position at the high school, as the high school principal, it was clear to me that the teaching staff was somewhat teaching in isolation. We didn't have departmental meetings at that time. And I think the dialogue between staff members was minimal. In fact, I know it was. So one of the things that I initiated immediately was to institute staff meetings, or, excuse me, departmental meetings. And as a result of those departmental meetings, it has offered us, I believe, the chance to dialogue outside of the classroom day, provide the best kind of instruction that we can possibly offer, and also do some aligning with curriculum, also making sure that we are doing the kinds of things that we said we're going to do. You know, the mapping program that we took up a couple of years ago has been very, very helpful for this district. And it's been very helpful for us as a secondary staff as well. It has given us a roadmap. It has given us a guideline as to who's doing what, so the left hand knows what the right hand is doing now in that building. And I think there's less confusion about what their responsibilities are. If they're teaching U.S. history, if they're teaching American history, whatever the issue may be, if it's government, people know exactly what their responsibilities are now. And the person walking off the street, the new teacher walking off the street, may take them a while to get up to speed with what's going on, but I believe that the dialogue between departmental members, as well as some of the initiatives that we've taken with departmental meetings and the mapping, has provided that provide us a good positive roadmap. So,
Okay, further, in what ways have kind of you helped guide that mapping process?
well,
What roles have you played?
Okay. As a building principal, I am responsible for being the leader during those meetings. When there are problems that arise, that I am the person that is going to troubleshoot those problems. When there are questions that arise that need to be solved, I help facilitate the problem solving that goes on. But that is very much the responsibility of the building principal, to be there and to be present and to troubleshoot areas that are problematic from time to time.
Okay. Krista?
Mike, you've talked a lot about being a principal, and I understand that you've been doing that
Yeah.
for 6 years.
Yeah.
And that's where your focus has been. But, you know, what sets you apart in terms of why you should be the next superintendent of Hazlet Public Schools? What is it about you? What can you bring here? And how can you encompass everything and still focus on the high school, but grasp what's going on for the
Right.
entire big picture?
Well, the short answer is that I believe I have a vested interest in this community. And I care very deeply about the education and welfare of the kids in this community, as well as my own kids. Every one of these board members have had students that have gone through this district at some point or another. And I suspect that all of you have gotten off the sideline to get involved because you care deeply about the education of children, and also cared about your own children. And So I would tell you that's my answer, is that I have a vested interest. I have 2 children coming through this district. I care very deeply about their education and the kinds of activities they're going to be involved with in the next 7 or 8 years around here. And it's important to me. I believe that I can make a difference. And that's my short answer to that.
Yeah, would you like to ask another question?
Yeah, Mike, how do you feel about the way we've handled negotiations with our unions over the years that you've been here? And have you thought at all about what you would do differently as a superintendent?
Well,
Or the same?
Okay, I've been very pleased with the way that negotiations have occurred here. And one of the strengths I believe that this district has identified is the key people that are involved with negotiations. And when they go to the table, there are, the principal players are at that table. It is people that have an understanding of what is true and what is not true. And when they go to make decisions based on whatever the decision is to be based on, it's based on accurate information. And I believe that's a sound fundamental principle that needs to happen. It needs to be accurate, and the principal players at that table need to have a clear understanding of what is accurate.
Thank you.
Scott?
Okay, Mike, I want to give you another shot at the elementary.
Okay?
Okay?
Yes, sir.
As you know, here in Hazlet, we have a very successful early elementary building in Wilkeshire. Okay, then when we send our little graduates from Wilkeshire, when they graduate from 1st to 2nd grade, little Johnny says goodbye to little Molly for 4 years because they happen to live in a different part of the community. Then we bring them back together in the middle school, of which you were assistant principal, and then we leave them together again in the high school. So, out of 13 years of education here in Hazlet, we have them all together, except for the 4 years, 2 through 5. Can you tell me, in your opinion, or have you given it any thought, why Raleigh and Murphy are such good schools, and they are, but why do we separate, why do we force the kids to say goodbye to each other, who are friends, who have developed friendships in that early elementary building, and for all I know now, in the pre-elementary building that is going to be constructed. And we educate them in 2 separate buildings. So in other words, we force the kids to say goodbye for 4 years and bring them back together.
Right.
Do you see any advantages or disadvantages as to why this district does that?
Sounds like you've been talking to my wife, but no.
I have, but not about that issue.
I recall when my son was coming out of Wilkeshire, and this issue was posed to me because I was a building administrator at the time. And my sense is that you have community schools, we have community schools, and people are very, very comfortable with the fact that if they live near Raleigh, that they're going to be attending Raleigh.
You mean neighborhood? Are you
Neighborhood
community
areas.
schools, neighborhood
That's
schools are the
correct.
same? Okay.
And it's, I think there are pluses and minuses to both, and I'm not giving you the answer that I feel strongly both ways, but there are pluses and minuses to both if you can put a grade level in one building, because it may offer you the opportunity to consolidate perhaps a 5th grade or 4th grade or 3rd grade or whatever, and personnel-wise may not have to use as many personnel. But in the long run, when you're looking at the well-being of the child, I don't know that there's been a lot of studies on taking or removing a student from his community school or his neighborhood school and busing him across town or her across town to just for the satisfaction of leaving grades together.
But we've done it for the first 2 years.
I understand that piece of it, but now you've got 2 community schools, and I think that it's, I think it becomes difficult for parents as children are able to walk to school, and as they get older, being able to probably be a little bit more independent than they were at K-1. But I don't have a simple answer for you there. I think that it's a community, it would be an interesting community study to see if parents are in fact in favor of that. My guess is that you would probably find a lot of resistance to that from this community,
Why?
because you're taking them out of their neighborhood.
Because of the neighborhood.
Because of the neighborhood issue. And I've not done studies or seen studies on that, but I know that when elementary schools have been closed in some of our neighboring districts, it's caused a little bit of a furor.
Well, I'm not talking about closing any of it.
No, I'm not talking about closing it, but,
Reconfiguring.
I mean, when you talk about the fact that they've had to close schools in some neighboring districts and bus those students to another one, it's caused some hardships.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Okay.
But that is a tough one. That's a tough one. I don't have a simple answer for you there.
Tobias?
You seem to be talking a lot right now. You should have a little water.
Look at the man, watch the clock. You're not taking a test.
Question for you. Concerning the greater holistic culture of the Hazlet schools, one of the challenges facing our district will be finances. And the expense side, we've been able to manage very well and effectively with minimal impact to our students. The revenue side, we can't control as much from the state. There are some thoughts to bring more affordable housing to the district so you can mitigate the declining enrollment. How do you feel about school of choice, Mike? Is that a solution to our funding issues?
I believe I stated in the last interview, I believe the way that Hazlet has behaved with schools of choice has been very, very responsible. I just got done 2 days ago sifting through schools of choice applications, and for each and every one of those applications, there was a phone call to the district in which the student was leaving. When students are leaving districts for reasons other than educational opportunities, I have a problem with that. When students want to come here because they see this as an educational opportunity for them beyond what they're able to get, I think those are solid, valid reasons to accept schools of choice. Now, granted, we've had a lottery in this system, and we've also been, like I said, very responsible in allowing students that have been suspended or students that have been expelled from other districts, we prohibit them from entering school here, and I would continue to support that kind of behavior. But I think that we need to be very, very careful about going down that road, and we need to just be very, very careful about what it is we're looking for in a schools of choice student.
Thank you.
Charlie?
Mike, one of the criteria that we, as a board, decided on that we wanted to see in the superintendent was the ability to communicate with all the stakeholders in the district, and basically, and also outside of the district, because there are a lot of interested people outside of our district who watch Hazlet, who learn from Hazlet, as well as we learn from them. How do you approach this communication aspect of the job? What's your style?
The best way for me, Charlie, and the most successful, the most successes I've had is face-to-face. And it's, it's important for all of us as administrators and personnel of Hazlet schools to, for lack of a better description, to be ambassadors. And I think everybody here is. I think we enjoy the fact that we have more teachers living in this district. When I talk about teachers that teach in other particular districts but choose to educate their children here, I think that speaks volumes about this district as a whole, because I just think it's important that we're able to communicate that. And my style is face-to-face. I believe I'm a very visible person in this community. And part of it is because I live in the community. Part of it is because of the nature of my job, where I am at a number of events where, let's face it, on Friday night in the fall, the only game in town is the one over at the football stadium. And the same thing holds true with basketball, and we do see a great deal of community members in and out of this community that attend our other extracurricular events, whether it be choir events, the plays, or whatever. And I'm there. And I understand that's part of my responsibility, but it's also a part of something that I believe I do best, and that's being part of it and being out in front. So face-to-face is, I guess, is the way that I communicate best with people. And that's my style.
Mike, can you talk about a time that you were involved in a cross-district initiative? That means more than, it could be multiple buildings, it could be the district, not just defining the community. So any type of cross-district initiative that involved more than just the high school. And then what, and then, yeah,
Are
go
you
ahead.
talking about our district as well as somebody else's
No,
district?
it would be within the confines of the Hazlet community, but across this district, across buildings in this district, or across community organizations in this district. So, but it's, I'm not looking for your initiatives with East Lansing or things. But then, when I mean cross-district is between the high school and the middle school, or high school and any type of and what role did you play in that? Or has there been, and you don't even have to use your high school, I mean, you go back to middle school.
Well, I hope, I'm not sure I understand the question correct, but I've been part of the YMCA board for the last half a dozen years, for instance. And part of the, one of the initiatives that we have every year is Invest in Youth. And so it affects elementary, it affects middle school, it affects high school.
Okay, that's great. Just keep going. What's your role? How did you influence that? How did you shape that?
Obviously, Invest in Youth is we're looking for contributions to the YMCA organization to help students that are less fortunate be able to attend Camp Waupee or some of the other opportunities that are afforded to them during the time that they're using that facility. So, my responsibility is to solicit donations and to ask people to donate money. So I guess that's an example.
How did you use the school, leverage the school in any way to expand that program, or?
Do I use the school?
Or how did you get it into the schools and get kids aware of it?
Well, I didn't do it solely by myself. I had help from Ernie Waltzer over at the elementary. In fact, I guess I would say that I assist him more than he assists me. And Ernie will send out emails, but it's something I talk about at staff meetings, or I'll talk about directly to our administrative staff and ask for contributions. And again, it's a lot of face-to-face types of things, trying to beg, borrow, and steal and get people to ante up.
Mike?
Yeah, Mike, what is your vision for Hazlet Public Schools? Where, 5 years from now, where do you see our programs? Where do you see our buildings? And how do you get us from where we are now to that vision 5 years from now?
Well, there is a very strong foundation in this district already. And over the last 14 years, I mean, it's something that I think all of us have enjoyed. As you talked about the MSU collaboration, that and the Wilkshire collaboration is something that we need to pay very, very close attention to. I also think that the construction wrap-up in the next couple of years is very, very important to us, as well as the financial piece that's forever looming on the horizon. Additionally, I think there are opportunities for other partnerships out there, whether it be with academic institutions or businesses. I think we're on the cusp, I think, of career education right now and making things real for students in this district. Technology, obviously, is on the forefront all the time and something we need to pay attention to. The infrastructure of these buildings and our facilities are something that we have to pay attention to. And as I said to you in the last interview, the face of education is changing very, very rapidly. For me, the vision is educational opportunities. And we as a staff have a responsibility, all of us, to recognize those opportunities for students when they come down the pike. And we also have to be prepared to invest our resources in those types of opportunities, educational opportunities for kids that are going to serve their needs. And I think that's imperative. I believe the vision is going to be changing. I believe the opportunities are going to present themselves at a given time, and we have to make a decision as to whether or not we're going to put forth the energy as well as the resources into those opportunities for those kids. You know, I talked a little bit about the mentorship program that we're looking at right now. The stage technology, there's opportunities, in my opinion, to look at consortiums where if there is a school system out there that is offering a particular program for a student that we're not able to afford to offer, or we don't have the enrollment to support it, then we need to look at allowing that student to move on to that school for a couple hours during the day to get involved with that. 2 years ago, I had a student that was very, very interested in the ag program. And I doubt very seriously whether we're going to have an ag program here anytime in the future. There just isn't the interest for it. But we should be looking at opportunities for the student that perhaps does have an interest and say, you know what, it is okay for you to go here for a couple of hours a day. And the same thing holds true for, and I'm going to use the Stage Tech program again. I have a young person in there right now that has the enthusiasm to develop a tech program. Unfortunately, he's not certified right now. And so through conversations with the ISD right now, we're trying to look at ways to get him certified to be working with our young people. And if we don't have enough people to fill that program, why can't somebody from East Lansing or Perry or wherever that has a desire to be involved with that program get involved with it? I mean, it just makes sense to me. And I'm not talking about consolidation of schools now. I'm talking about particular programs to offer students. So when you talk about a vision for me is exploring those educational opportunities all the time. To say that we're going to look like we do 5 years from now at Hazard High School would be a stretch. I didn't believe that virtual high school or online courses would be as popular as they are. We had 40 students enrolled in them this year, and they continue to flourish. And as I've said to you over and over again, the face of education is changing, and we have to be prepared to say, you know what, these are opportunities and we need to take a good look at them before we say yay or nay.
Lightning round.
Kristen, did you get your last question in?
I'll
Go
go first.
ahead.
Go ahead, Scott. No, I'm all set. Thank you.
My question hopefully will be longer than your answer. Okay. I personally believe that staff, and I mean mainly teachers here, but not exclusively teachers, must be regularly reviewed by their superiors. A tenured teacher, for example, I believe can be in a unique position to be seldom, if ever, reviewed by his or her superiors. Tell me, if you would, and as a superintendent, how you would assure me and the parents here in Hazlet that you would either implement a new or continue with the existing program for our employee evaluations.
Yeah. The present system as it's set up right now, there's a 3-year annual review, okay? But I will tell you that we have the opportunity as administration to review and do a traditional type of evaluation of any staff person whenever there is reason for concern. So I believe those opportunities or those evaluative tools are in place right now here. The evaluation that we do with a growth plan right now with teachers is a 3-year type of growth plan that they are responsible for. I would tell you that that is something that we have talked about as an administrative staff in the last few years to look at again. But, even from my own perspective as a person that when you start looking at your own review or your own evaluation of yourself, I think that you become more critical or more insightful of some of your weaknesses, and if you have an opportunity to go through a growth plan and do it in a proper manner. But the way that we do evaluations right now, Scott, I believe there is always an opportunity to reevaluate somebody if the performance is not there.
So that's normally the trigger, is somehow lack of performance?
If there is a lack of performance and
if
it's identified, then it's something that
doesn't that make
an improvement plan could be put in place for that person, given a chance to improve?
Doesn't that make evaluation and reviews then somewhat strained by the fact that if I'm getting reviewed, that must mean I'm doing something that somebody has identified as the reason that I'm getting?
I would tell you that before that evaluation, that piece of it comes about, it's met with a lot of dialogue between the staff person as well as the administrator to raise that level of concern. I mean, if you're going back to a traditional evaluation and you have a staff person that's been put on an improvement plan, clearly it is because there is a problem. And this isn't something that's unique, or not unique, but it's not something that's new, and people understand that. If I sit down with you as a staff person and say, I've got an issue with something that you're doing, and I don't like something that's happening here, and we need to make some corrective action.
I understand that part of it. What I don't understand, or I'd like an explanation of, is the person who's got nothing going on wrong. Let's take Jan Schumacher for the example. I just gave her accolades, as did you. Does she get reviewed?
Yes,
How often?
every 3 years.
Okay, well, that's, I guess, what I'm getting at here.
Yes.
Is every 3 years, and that plan is,
It's a result of her growth plan, all right? She develops a growth plan, there may be an
I
area.
hate to be picking on
All right,
here.
but, yeah. But if I sit down with you with your growth plan, Scott, we're going to go over some things that we feel that you can benefit from. You as a classroom teacher, maybe some things that I have seen you as a classroom teacher, and agree that these are things that we're going to work on. And it's something that you as a person can say, you know what, I'm working on these types of issues that you have concerns about, that I have concerns about, and here's what I'm doing in my classroom on such and such a day. Why don't you come in here and observe me and watch and see what I'm doing with this to try and make some corrections.
thank you.
I'm all set. Thank you.
You're all set? Okay. That's all we have.
okay.
Oh, do you,
Yeah, give
This
him
is
a
just
moment.
a.
now you have a moment to for any last comments or thoughts that you have.
I really don't. I don't have any questions for you. This has been an interesting process, and I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to interview with you. As I've said to you over and over again, I do have a vested interest in this community, and it's been a great place for us, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for taking the time, and we appreciate you being here.
You got it bad. You know, when I saw you with Sky Masterson the other night. Oh no! Not Sky! You're not in love with Sky! You poor thing!
I thought I hated him.
I thought I hated Nathan. I still think I hate him. That's love.
Miss Adelaide, can't men like Sky ever change?
For 14 years I've tried to change Nathan. I've always thought of how wonderful he would be if he were different.
I've thought about Sky that way too.
But they just can't change.
A little while ago at our prayer meeting, there were a lot of gamblers who acted as though maybe they could change.
But that doesn't mean that they... Gamblers? At your prayer meeting? Was Nathan Detroit there?
I'm sure I heard that name.
How do you like that, Rat? Just when you should be lying, he's telling the truth. I'm glad I'm through with him. And you ought to be glad you're through with Sky, too.
I am.
What are we, crazy or something? At Wanamaker's and Saxon Klein's, a lesson I've been taught. You can't get alterations on a dress you haven't bought.
At any vegetable market from Borneo to Nome, you mustn't squeeze a melon till you get the melon home.
You've simply got to gamble.
You get no guarantee.
Now doesn't that kind of apply to you and I?
You and me.
Whatever. Why not?
Why not what?
Marry the man today. Trouble though he may be, much as he loves to play. Crazy and wild and free, marry the man today. Rather than sigh in sorrow, marry the man today and change his ways tomorrow.
Marry the man today.
Marry the man today.
Maybe he's leaving
Maybe
town.
he's leaving town.
Don't let him get away.
Don't let him get away.
Hurry and track him
Counterattack
down.
him and marry the man today. Give him the girlish laughter.
Give him your hand today and save the fist for after.
Slowly introduce him to the better things. Respectable, conservative, and clean.
Reader's Digest.
Guy Lombardo.
Rogers Pete.
Go! Galoshes! Ovaltine. But marry the man today. Handle him meek and gently. Marry the man today and train him subsequently.
Carefully expose him to domestic life. And if he ever tries to stray from you, have a pot roast.
Have a headache.
Have a baby.
Have 2, 6, 9. Stop! Marry the man today. Rather than sigh in sorrow, marry the man today and change his ways and change his ways and change his ways.
wedding gonna take place or ain't it? I paid $50 for this gardenia.
Nathan, come on!
Oh, gee, Adelaide, you picked the busiest time of day. Let's go. Where's the wedding? Holy smokes!
What's the matter?
I didn't get a place for the wedding.
Oh, Nathan.
Well, how about the Billboard Garage? Brothers and sisters, life is one big crap game and the devil's using loaded dice.
Where's the crap game?
Brother Masterson? Yes, Brother Detroit?
Can we get married in your mission? That's Adelaide and I.
Certainly. And I'm just the man to do it. Nathan, I'll lay you 8 to 5. You'll be very happy.
What Obadiah